So welcome everyone to day 18 of the 90-day momentum challenge. Today is day 18, which means this month is almost over and we are well into this journey. At this point, the goal is to start amping up. And so we'll talk about another model today that is practical. If we talk about anything that is purely for intellectual amusement, it will be a waste of my time and a waste of your time. We talk about a model that is widely used in neuro-linguistic programming. It also has 6 levels, and I think it's probably one of the most powerful models that I use a lot whenever I'm facing challenges to figure out at what level am I getting stuck. This model has 6 levels. I will give you the 6 levels, then we talk through them. There is nothing novel, there's nothing surprising about what it entails. The biggest component of the work we have to do is how to apply it on a day-to-day basis. So the 6 levels. So this is best represented in form of concentric circles. Let me see if I can find I should have done this, but I've just come back from work, so I should have been able to have this already set up so that I can just show you this and we move on. But let me see if I have, unfortunately, I do not see any of the sources I usually have close by, and it will take time to find it. So we'll just go ahead and talk about it, and you can write it out. So I would like you to draw to the best of your ability. If you missed your drawing classes or your drawing classes or in the afternoon like mine and your drawing therefore is disjointed, that's not a problem, okay? So you draw 6 circles. So you draw a small circle at the center and then draw concentric circles until you have 6 circles. In other words, the one at the center and 5 more. And that's the best way to visualize this model. 5 circles surrounding the circle at the center. So there are 6 levels. We start with the circle at the center. That circle at the center is spirituality, stroke origin. Spirituality, stroke origin, stroke meaning. And this is the word meaning here. I'm using it quite loosely, but it's way, way deeper than just the way we generally use it. But spirituality is the main word at the center. The next circle is identity. The next circle after that is beliefs. The next circle after that is capacity. The next circle after that is behavior. The outermost circle is environment. If we go down to identity, identity is who you believe you are. Everything you do, everything you believe, how you behave, the environments you allow yourself to operate in, they are all underlain by who you believe you are. How do you see yourself? So the main word there is who. And if you read further, if it's your first time reading Atomic Habits, as you go in, you'll come to a chapter where he talks about habits that are identity driven tend to be the habits that stick with us the longest. Your identity is the strongest force that determines the consistency of your behaviors. Any behavior, any goal, any pursuit, any environment you place yourself into that is inconsistent with your identity, you soon find a way to live it, because it conflicts with the single most powerful force in your life. James Clear in his book gives an example of 2 people who are offered a cigarette. 2 people offered a cigarette. One person says, "No, I am trying to quit." The other person says, "I am not a smoker." They are faced with the same challenge, but they have two totally different identities. And one of the most powerful shifts we can make in our lives is to align with the identity that serves the highest purpose for which we are here. There's a very popular song that says, I know who I am. And I always question myself after I sing that song. I know who I am. I know who God says I am. That is not in question who God says I am. The question is, who do I actually see myself as? God says I'm a winner. And I say I don't like mornings. And therefore, I end up missing opportunities just because that's how I see myself. Because once I define myself, I box myself to the limits of the definition that I have put on my life. Once you define yourself, you automatically create limits. If you define yourself as a spoon or a spade, they serve similar purposes. They scoop, but the amount you're going to scoop is different. If you define yourself as a computer or define yourself as a server, you are going to serve tons and tons of small computers. But if you're just a computer, then you're going to do less. And now, what if you define yourself as a calculator? That means of all the functions a computer can perform now, your identity is limited to just that one thing. Your identity is the single most powerful force that determines what goals are going to stick around in your life, what behaviors you are likely to succeed with, what kind of networks you are likely to feel most comfortable in. And that believe that for me, my biggest challenge in life is to allow myself to expand the limits of my identity. In other words, to delimit myself. Because nothing that is inconsistent with your identity is going to stick in your life long term. The next level is beliefs. So identity is who you are. Beliefs is what do you believe about yourself. And that is the software. So if let's use the metaphor of a computer, if your identity is a laptop, beliefs is what software is installed. And unfortunately, we inherit so much software that by the time we are beginning to operate in the world, lots of that software is hidden so deep, it's so difficult to figure it out, leave alone trying to uproot it. But thankfully, your beliefs are like one of the best metaphors is the metaphor that is used in Atomic Habits about voting. That for you to be a winner in any election, you don't need to win every vote. You just need a majority, right? You just need a majority. The question is, do the majority of the things that are happening in your life vote for the kind of beliefs, the kind of software that is going to move you forward? Or are they strengthening the software that is likely to hold you back? And the interesting thing about beliefs is that beliefs are both permissions, and positive and negative beliefs. I think of them as permissions, a belief that enables you to do something, and limitations. Your limitations, when you accept them, they essentially become part of your beliefs. Are you permitting? Do your beliefs permit you, or do your beliefs limit you? The software you have, do you have software that is able to process what you are trying to accomplish? And if we don't have that software, how do we build it? One of the hardest things to do in life is to create a new set of beliefs, because beliefs are vulnerable for such a long time. They are susceptible to so many forces around us. The next level is capacity. And I always find it more practical when you talk about capacity and behavior at the same time. Just because you can do something does not mean you will do something. Your beliefs, perhaps another way to look at it, your beliefs are how you process what happens in your life as the software. Capacity is what are you capable of doing? And your behavior is how do you actually execute? How do you behave? How do you act? How do you function? And of course, your environment is everything. Your environment is what thoughts dominate your mind most of the time. What things do you pay attention? In other words, what is the mental environment that you have uh, within you? What is the emotional environment you have? What are the strongest emotions you experience most frequently? What are the most prevalent emotions you experience most of the time? If if I had a video over your life in the course of 1 month, what kind of emotional state might I perceive you to be just by watching when you wake up in the morning? Do you do you do you need a tractor to pull you out of bed and push you into the shower room for you to how do you move when you wake up? Do you move in a way that indicates, if somebody was watching you on video, indicates that you've started your day? That is your internal environment, your emotions, your thoughts, what attracts you, and then of course the environment that you live in terms of what are the most prevalent conversations among the people that you interact with the most. What is the tone of relationships in the family you're in your most important relationships, if you're married or if you're courting or dating, if you have children, if what is the most prevalent emotional tone, content of conversation in the workplace, the places where you spend most of your time? All these things are environment. When your television is on, what channels are most of the time on? Is it uh, URP and Ford and Chord and ODM, or is it what's its overall, what's the physical environment that you are in? Are you living in a clean house? Is it consistently clean? Is there a bulb that has been off for the last 3 months and every single day you are seeing it? So it's essentially hanging at the back of your mind, because if you don't get into the habit of decluttering those small things that you keep decluttering externally, that is going to be reflected internally. So environment, the internal environment and the external environment. And for the environment specifically, your challenge today, please write this down if you want. You don't have to. Write this down, that you will create time today and write down 10 small things that you have been putting off that you are going to get done. And they don't have to be measured. There is a message that you should have replied to 6 weeks ago. Go into that message and replied. There is a letter that you are intended to send, or a call you are intended to make, or there is something in your house you had intended to throw away or to donate, or make a list of some of those things. This is how we start to create movement. And when we create movement as part of the 6M, the movement we create doesn't always have to be tied purely to what our core mission or special project is. You create movement as a way for your mind to realize that you are the type of person who takes action. And you see, the brain doesn't differentiate between winning $1 million and earning 10 shillings. When you tick it off, the same parts of your brain get stimulated. Small and big, there is no difference. And this is why all men in the entire world have a difficult time in this world, because men believe if he goes and buys his wife Mercedes Benz, that is going to generate enough satisfaction for the next 3 years. Except he goes and buys Mercedes Benz, comes home, she has new hair, and he doesn't notice and he doesn't comment about it. So the Mercedes means the same thing as forgetting to. It's at the same level. I think it's how our brains work. How do our brains work? The brain is just counting. It's counting, literally counting and tallying. You might feel a little bit more, excited about this or the other, but overall, the brain can be deceived really easily by just having a few things. Let me tell you one of the things that I've learned to do over time. I would have important things to do, 3, 4 important things. Like today, I had extremely crucial things that had to be done. But if I show you my list of the things that I ticked off today, there are like 7 things which were very, very, very simple. One of them was find a paper. There's a journal that I'm subscribed to. Find a paper that is useful to a certain group of students I know, and send that paper to them. And I tick that off. How many minutes did it take me? Not many minutes, but they're finding value out of it, right? And by me looking at it, I know what that paper was about, but I get to tick it and I get to celebrate it as a victory today. So to me, it's not because of the work that I did as a physician that it's a big day. It's a big day because of so many small victories. So in your environment particularly, find a couple of things that you can start doing. If you live alone or you live with maybe 2 or 3 other people, if it's a bigger family, it's a different story. Start getting into that rhythm of the dishes don't have to accumulate. If you take tea in the morning and you go wash that cup and put it in the rack or put it in the dishwasher, that is a victory. Very small thing. You make your bed in the morning. This is, for some people, this is not even something that needs to be mentioned because they do it automatically, but not everybody does that. You wake up, you make your bed. That's a victory. Find those small victories in your environment. Gossip starts around you in the office and you excuse yourself and step away. You remember to write that down as victory, because you're beginning to manage your environment. Instead of being subjected to the environment, you're beginning to be an agent that is acting on the environment and determining what the external environment is going to give to you. The more progress you start making in terms of influencing your external environment, your internal environment has to follow suit. You become deliberate, you become more aware. It becomes much easier to bring awareness to what is going on inside. In the morning, every single time when I make my bed, if I'm the one making the bed in the morning, every single morning that I make my bed, there is an associated ritual that comes with it. And it's one of the things that gets me. It doesn't matter how tired I was the previous day. I am going to get ready, and it becomes like the trigger that now it's time for me to pray, sit down and meditate, reflect, review my goals. Like that series of the morning becomes ignited because I have done that first activity. And those are things that we will learn from the Atomic Habits by James Clear. Spirituality is something we haven't touched. So identity, beliefs, capacity, behavior, environment. These things can go either direction. You can start from environment and influence inwards, but the biggest, most powerful shift is that shift at the level of identity. The one thing that I pray and pray over and over is that by the time I come to the end of my life, that I have used as much of my capacity as possible. Because the unfortunate thing is that avocado trees grow to the fullest extent that they can grow. Cows grow and give as much milk as they can give. Fish, they grow and swim and give as many offspring as they can give. The only species in all of life that lives and sabotages itself, does not reach its capacity, is human beings. It's you and I. You and I are driven by very complex forces, forces such as the need for connection and belonging, where we get tied into groups or relationships or communities where it's not proper for you to work so hard and grow yourself, right? And we end up sabotaging ourselves. I think one of the things I did really, really, really well consistently was sabotaging myself. Start writing a book. I remember I started writing a book when I was in high school, and it was a story, like a really well-developed story. I allowed a teacher to talk me out of it, just because she read it and she made, disparaging comments. I allowed her to steal that dream from me. By the time I came back to try and write that book, that story was different, but also the time that I lost. So our capacity is affected by all these things. It's affected by our environment. It's affected by our behavior, because behavior, that's the level of habits. And when we talk about, that's what we are trying to influence. But our capacity is like a hidden gem. I watched a video recently of a Nigerian comedian who was being interviewed. He's a comedian, so this was a parody. He was being interviewed for a job, and they asked him, "So what do you bring to this position in this company if we hire you?" They said, "I bring a hidden potential." And they're like, "So tell us about your hidden potential." It's like, I can't tell you. It's hidden. It's hidden potential. I think the most regrettable thing is to live an entire life with hidden potential, especially when it's hidden potential in the things that God has designed you to be passionate about, which means for you to not take action in those areas, you have to deny yourself the opportunity to evolve into the kind of person you are designed to be. We cannot all be world-class journalists. We can't all be well-renowned politicians who make things happen. We can't all be top-class bankers. We can't all be world-renowned sportsmen. We can't all be even world-renowned at the things that we are most passionate about. But the one thing that we can all be is authentically confident that we are doing everything we can with the capacity that is inherent within us. So we are doing everything we can to expand our identity such that it allows us to keep growing so that we can serve as many people as possible, to influence as many people as possible within whatever realm we have been gifted in and we have been ordained to walk in. Every time I talk about this subject, I don't know how to get like what's really in my heart. I am passionate about this subject because the most difficult part of my journey was breaking away from the conditioning that I grew up with. I was always academically gifted, but I grew up in a poor family. I wanted to go to school. My parents couldn't get me to that school, right? And then I find myself in a rural school where everyone I know who had gone through that school drops out sometime in high school, or if they graduate from high school, it's not to go anywhere, it's just to complete and then settle in the village. But I have in my heart this burning desire that this is not what I want. I want something else, right? I want something higher. And every single day you are faced with an environment that is telling you that that capacity you have is misplaced. It's like a seed that is going to go to waste. As a result, I dabbled across so many things. I knew in my heart I wanted to become a doctor, but my environment almost convinced me that that was never going to happen. But here is the funny thing, that even after I became a doctor, and as a result, and that was probably one of the most painful parts of my life, all my friendships from childhood broke off. And they did not break off because I'm pushing people away or they're pushing me away. It just got to a place where there is no, beyond speaking the same language and having a little bit of history from the past, there is no point where we meet and think at the same level in any way. When I am, thinking about, so what's my next step and where am I going to go? These people are worried about what their children, what's going on with their family. They already have children. They're already set up. They have their life going in a different direction. And so I am being literally, just because of the clarity of the vision I had and the growth that I've experienced, I'm being uprooted from what I knew. Being uprooted from what I knew, and now finding myself in an environment where I have to essentially start recreating a new, to create a new perception of my identity, start embracing a new identity. I was a stutterer almost all my life. If you have listened to the audios that I usually share, it's very easy for people who know me to figure out the times that I am stuttering, right? But once I broke away from that old environment, one of the things that happened is that my stuttering actually decreased. Eventually, almost disappeared. It never disappeared. Almost disappeared. Your capacity is God's signal to you about what He intends for you. And any regret that you are going to have at the end of your life is going to relate to your capacity. Your perception of that capacity might change from time to time, but deep in your heart, your conscience, the wiring, the intrinsic permanent wiring you have, that will never go away. The question is, in the next 5 years, are you willing to cut off anything that detracts you from putting the focus you need in building your capacity? But also in starting to rebuild, look at where capacity is. The next two ranks, inside and outside, is behavior and beliefs. And the more progress we start making on behavior and beliefs, the greater possibilities becomes for us to start releasing that capacity. And I believe in my life, there is no higher worship that I can offer. There is no higher level of spirituality than to release that capacity. Because if I release that capacity, it means I have to continually upgrade my beliefs. And that will be the pathway that allows me to continually become who God says I am. Because who God says I am is not in question. It is, who do I see myself as? And therefore, what kind of beliefs have I built? What kind of beliefs am I voting for on a daily basis? The beliefs that I'm voting for, they are the key that either opens my capacity up or locks my capacity down. The things that I can learn, I will not learn them if I have beliefs that say I can't learn those things. The ways I can behave, I can be confident, I can be consistent, I can learn whatever I want. Those new ways that I could behave, I can show up no matter what. Those new ways that I can behave. I can't behave like that if my capacity is still locked down and I'm still tied down to beliefs that say that I'm not a morning person, or I don't like monotony. I don't like repeating the same thing over and over, or I don't like reading books, or um, I, I don't like working hard beyond what I have been asked to do. The way you see yourself determines the kind of beliefs you keep voting for, because the beliefs have to be consistent with your identity. The beliefs you keep voting for decide whether your capacity is being gradually unlocked or continuously locked down. And the extent to which you open up your capacity determines how much room you give yourself to behave in a way that builds your identity and refines your beliefs and releases more of your capacity. And if this cycle between just these four layers, identity, beliefs, capacity, and behavior, if I become more aware about how I am acting across these three and how I'm thinking about across these four rather, then it becomes so much easier for me to begin to influence my environment so that I am not just a product of my environment. If I was a product of my environment today, I would probably be the youngest clan elder in a village in Kisii. I would have my, my cowboy hat, because one of my age mates has been a clan elder and has already retired from that position, waiting to go back a second time, right? Your environment, you can be influenced, you can have been shaped and touched by your environment, but you don't have to be a product of your environment. And that's probably, if I would preach one single message the rest of my life, that would be it. You don't have to be defined by your environment. You are not destined the rest of your journey to live a life that is only dependent on what your environment gave you. Your environment is a tool that you can utilize to start to reflect to you the kind of identity you want in your life, the kind of beliefs you want to vote for, so that you can open up as much of your capacity as possible. And that gives you the room to start to behave in a way that strengthens all these things that precede. Now we go back to the innermost circle. And I think the most powerful word for that circle is origin. And this is not a philosophical or religious discussion. I choose consciously to believe that I was created in the image of a creator, and that is my origin. And that my purpose is twofold: to grow to the highest level of capacity that I can be, and to contribute value to serve as many people as possible. As that is my purpose, my overall purpose. The specific purpose is to serve people as a physician and to speak. Serve people as a physician and to speak. That is my origin. Where are you from? Whose are you? Because you need roots, you need a grounding. I have seen patients come to the hospital who say they don't believe in God, but when things are going wrong, almost to a person, oh my God, somehow almost always comes up. When you come and tell them the bad news that unfortunately the tests we did, they show that you have a really bad cancer. Oh my God, almost to a person. I do not remember a patient in whom I did not either perceive it or hear it, where it was, a critical. So what is your origin? Everything has to be anchored back. If we are operating in a vacuum and we have an amazing identity, wonderful beliefs, and our capacity is limitless, And of course, we are behaving and we live in an environment. If all these things are not anchored to something that is changeless, if they're not anchored to something that is changeless, we have no stability. You get to decide what your origin is and your spirituality. For me, spirituality is about growth and contribution. Growing to the most that you can and contributing the most that you can. If these two things become my focus, then I don't even have time to start criticizing somebody else, because I'm criticizing them, but I don't know where they are in their journey. Have I done all my growth? I haven't. Once I get to the point where I am really clear about what direction I need to grow, and the direction is driven by what my origin is. What is your origin? What is the most meaningful way that your life can unfold? Now, your perception of that can change over time, but what the highest and most valuable way it is does not change. And as my awareness grows, as your awareness grows, that pathway begins to become clear. The book of Proverbs says that do not trust in your own understanding, right? Then it uses an interesting word, paths. He will order your steps. He guides your paths. If you read that verse, the word is paths. There is not a single path. So nobody can tell you like, oh, this is the way we should go, because everybody is walking their own journey. Nobody really knows for sure where tomorrow is going to end, except the person who is at the origin level, right? So the origin gives me stability. It gives me peace, knowing that it's everything I'm doing here has meaning beyond the surface, meaning beyond what I can articulate with my words. So these are the 6 levels. At the center is origin or spirituality or meaning at a deep level, not just the way we generally use that word as an English vocabulary. So spirituality, origin at the very center. The next level is identity. Who are you? The next level is your beliefs. What do you believe? How do you see yourself? It's there is the question of course, who you are, but who you are is deeper than how you see yourself. Because the more you start seeing yourself the way according to who you are, the more you discover who you are. I do not think I yet know who I am, because there are dreams and visions I had as a child, which I still struggle to bring back. And every single time I have found myself really in flow and fulfilled in what I'm doing, it always aligns with how I used to see myself at the times when I used to have all those questions. And of course, the next level is your capacity. Your capacity in the areas that God has ordained you to serve and serve well, your capacity is almost limitless. It's almost limitless. Your capacity, it cannot be compared, it can't be compared with somebody else's. It is yours. You have been specifically ordained for that specific realm, for that specific group of people to serve that specific purpose. You do not know what it is, but you have there are signs in your heart about what that is likely to be. If you don't know what that is, you keep growing. You start acting, start creating momentum. Then the more you move along, God will open your doors. Your behavior is one of the areas we will work on a lot. That's where your habits come in. And of course, your environment, which you can begin to influence. I'm going to stop there. Then we'll do a quick round of sharing and see if there's any one person we could coach together, and then we'll close this session. I'm surprised that this has been almost 50 minutes. I didn't intend that we would have a long sharing like that. I'll stop this here.